I arrived at my son Brian's house on Thanksgiving afternoon, November 28th, 2024. The air was cold, that sharp Michigan cold that cuts through your coat. But inside, the house was warm. I could hear my grandchildren laughing. Emma and Tyler, 11 and 8 years old. Everyone was gathered in the living room. My sister Diane was there, her husband Paul, Brian's wife Jessica, the kids running around with their cousins. It was our annual tradition. The family photo on Thanksgiving, we'd been doing it for 43 years. I walked toward the group, taking off my coat. "Sorry I'm late," I said. Traffic was terrible. Brian looked up from his phone. "Oh, Mom, we already took the photo. You were in the bathroom." I stopped. "The bathroom? I just got here." He gestured toward the mantel. "We took it a few minutes ago. We couldn't wait." I looked at the mantel. There it was, the family photo. Everyone smiling in front of the fireplace. My sister Diane, Paul, Brian and Jessica, Emma and Tyler, even my brother-in-law's sister, who I'd only met twice. Everyone was there, everyone except me. I stood there looking at that photo. 43 years of family Thanksgivings. And this year, I wasn't in it. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, not yet, just confusion. "Well," I said quietly, "maybe we can take another one." Brian was already walking toward the kitchen. "We'll do it next year, Mom. Come on, dinner's almost ready." I stayed in that living room for another minute, looking at the photo, looking at my family, my son, my grandchildren, everyone I'd given everything to, and I wasn't in the picture. I went home early that night, said I wasn't feeling well. It wasn't a lie. When I got home, I made coffee. 6:30 at night, but I needed something to do with my hands. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table my late husband James and I had bought 40 years ago, the same table where I'd helped Brian with his homework, where I'd signed all those checks over the years. The mail was sitting there. I hadn't opened it before I left for dinner. I picked up the stack, electric bill, credit card offer, and my bank statement from First National. I opened it. I'd been banking with First National for 35 years. I knew what my balance should be, $3,800 in checking, $89,000 in my retirement savings account. Not a fortune, but enough to live on, enough to feel secure. The statement showed my checking account balance, negative $412. I stared at that number. Negative. Overdraft fees applied. I looked at the transaction list. 4 checks had cleared in the past month. Check number 2847, $8,200. Check number 2851, $4,100. Check number 2855, $3,800. Check number 2862, $2,009. $100. I didn't write those checks. My coffee sat there cooling. I could hear the refrigerator humming, the heat clicking on. Normal sounds, but nothing felt normal. I looked at the notation lines, the descriptions of what the checks were for: boat payment, event catering, vacation rental, country club membership. I didn't own a boat, I didn't rent a vacation property. I wasn't a member of any country club, and I certainly didn't spend $4,000 on event catering. But there were the checks, printed right there on the statement, with my signature. I got up and found my checkbook in the desk drawer. I flipped to the register. The last check I'd written was number 2839 for $83 to the electric company. 3 weeks ago, checks 28, 47 through 62. I never wrote them, but someone had, and they'd signed my name. I sat back down at the kitchen table, the bank statement in front of me, the family photo from earlier that day flashing in my mind, everyone there, everyone except me. I thought about Brian, about how he'd barely looked at me when I arrived, about how quickly he'd dismissed the photo, and then I saw it. Check number 2851, $4,100, notation, event catering. The date it cleared, November 20th, 8 days ago. The same week, Brian had invited everyone for Thanksgiving dinner. The same dinner where I wasn't in the photo. I'd paid for a family reunion I'd been erased from. My hands were shaking. I set the paper down carefully. I took a sip of coffee. It was cold. I didn't care. I sat there with that bank statement in my hands, and I realized this wasn't the first time. How long had this been going on, and why my signature? Who had access to my checks? The house was quiet, too quiet. I was 68 years old, a widow, a retired teacher who'd worked for 35 years. I'd saved every penny I could, and someone was taking it. Someone had signed my name, written my checks, spent my money, and I didn't know who, or I didn't want to know, but I was going to find out. My name is Linda Morrison. I'm 68 years old. I taught elementary school for 35 years, third grade mostly. I retired 3 years ago. My husband James died 5 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden. He was 65. We'd been married for 43 years. After James died, it was just me in our house. The same ranch-style house we'd bought in 1984. 3 bedrooms. Paid off. In a quiet suburb outside Grand Rapids, Michigan. I have my pension from teaching. $3,200 a month. Social Security. $1,600 a month. It's enough. I'm careful with money. Always have been. I have one child. Brian. He's 42. My only son. I raised him mostly alone after my first marriage ended when he was a teenager. Then James came into our lives, and James was good to Brian, helped put him through college. But I was always the one Brian came to when he needed something, and he needed a lot. I'd given Brian everything I could over the years. $65,000 for college, 4 years of tuition, room and board at Michigan State. I worked double shifts at the elementary school to afford it, summer school teaching, tutoring on weekends, $35,000 for his wedding to Jessica 15 years ago, the whole traditional affair, 200 guests, open bar. I wanted him to have a beautiful day, $50,000 for the down payment on their first house. That money came straight from my retirement fund, the fund I'd been building since I was 25. $22,000 for a car when his old one broke down, a Honda Accord, reliable, and $40,000 when I co-signed his business loan 5 years ago. He wanted to start a consulting business. It failed within 18 months. I ended up paying half of it back, $212,000 total, over 25 years. I kept track, not to hold it over him, just to know, to understand where my money had gone. I thought I was helping him build a life. I thought that's what mothers did. Brian has 2 children, my grandchildren. Emma is 11, Tyler is 8. They're in private school, St. Joseph's Academy, $2,400 a month for both of them. Brian and his wife Jessica asked me to help with tuition last year. I said yes. Of course I said yes. They're my grandchildren. I couldn't say no to my own child. What kind of parent would I be? That's what I told myself every time, every check I wrote, every loan I co-signed. Family comes first. That's how I was raised. That's what I believed. But looking at that bank statement on my kitchen table, I realized something. There's a difference between helping and enabling. And I'd been enabling for 25 years. The morning after Thanksgiving, I woke up at 6:30, same time as always. I made coffee. Same blue mug James gave me 40 years ago. Our anniversary. I sat at the kitchen table, but I didn't read the newspaper like I usually did. I just sat there, thinking about that photo, thinking about those checks. My neighbor Margaret came by around 9. She always does on Friday mornings. We're both in the garden club together. She's 72, a widow too. Her husband died 10 years ago. She lives next door, has for 15 years. She knows me better than most people. She brought a casserole, tuna noodle. She always brings food when she thinks something's wrong. That's Margaret, practical, no nonsense. She doesn't ask if you're okay. She just brings casseroles and sits with you until you talk. "You left Brian's early last night," she said. She was sitting across from me at the kitchen table. The bank statement was still there. I'd left it out. "I wasn't feeling well," I said. She looked at the statement, then at me. "What's going on?" I told her. About the photo, about the checks, about the signatures I didn't write. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Linda, you need to call the bank, today." "I will," I said, but I didn't move. "What are you afraid of?" she asked. I looked at her. "I'm afraid I already know who did this." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. She didn't say anything else. She didn't have to. After Margaret left, I sat there for a while longer. Then I got up and went to the closet in the hallway, the one where I keep old photo albums. I pulled out 3 of them, brought them back to the kitchen table. I opened the first one. Thanksgiving, 1995. Brian was 13. James and I were young, smiling, Brian in the middle. I flipped through. Thanksgiving 2000. Brian was 18, off to college the next year. Thanksgiving 2010. Brian and Jessica's first Thanksgiving as a married couple. I was in every photo, center, off to the side, sometimes holding one of the grandchildren, but I was there, in every single one. 40 years of Thanksgivings, 40 photos, and in every single one I was there, until yesterday. I closed the album. My coffee was cold again. I seem to be letting a lot of coffee go cold lately. I thought about 3 months ago, August. Brian had called me, asked if I could come over. He had some paperwork he needed me to sign. Family trust paperwork, he said. Something about protecting assets, making sure everything was in order for the future, for Emma and Tyler, for the grandchildren. I went over. He had the papers laid out on his dining room table, a stack of documents, lots of legal language I didn't understand. He showed me where to sign. I asked him what it was for exactly. He said it was just standard estate planning stuff, making sure the kids were taken care of if anything happened to me, making sure things would go smoothly, no probate, no legal fees. I signed. I didn't read it carefully. I trusted him. He's my son. Why wouldn't I trust him? Now I wondered, what did I sign? Was it really a trust, or was it something else, something that gave him access to my accounts? I sat there at my kitchen table. The photo, albums open in front of me, the bank statement next to them, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt stupid, not angry yet, not hurt even, just stupid, for trusting so completely, for not asking questions, for signing papers without reading them. I knew things had been tight for Brian and Jessica. I knew he'd lost his job 18 months ago, sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. They downsized, let 40% of the workforce go. Brian sent out hundreds of applications, only got 3 interviews. The job market was tough for people in their 40s, especially in his field. Meanwhile, they had a mortgage, $3,200 a month, private school for the kids, Jessica's medical bills. She has fibromyalgia, chronic pain. She can't work full-time anymore. She used to be a nurse, made $65,000 a year. Now she works part-time, makes $28,000. The medical treatments are expensive. Physical therapy, $200 a week. Medications, $350 a month. I knew all this. I'd helped them before. Last year, I paid $12,000 toward Jessica's medical bills. I did it willingly. They were struggling, they were family. But this, the checks, the signatures, this wasn't asking for help. This was taking. This was stealing. I sat there until noon. Then I picked up the phone. I called First National Bank, asked to speak to someone about my account. They transferred me 3 times. Finally, I got someone in the fraud department, a man named Richard. He asked me to describe the issue. I told him about the checks, about the signatures, about the fact that I didn't write them. He asked me to hold. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Finally, he came back on the line. "Mrs. Morrison," he said, "I'm looking at your account now. You're right. There are 4 checks that cleared last month. But according to our records, the signatures match your signature on file, and the checks were written from your checkbook. Check numbers in sequence with your last written check." "I didn't write them," I said. "Do you have your checkbook with you?" he asked. I did. I looked. Checks 2840 through 2846 were there, unused. Check 2847 through 62. Gone. Someone had taken pages out of my checkbook. Someone took checks from my checkbook, I said. My voice was shaking now. Mrs. Morrison, Richard said carefully. Do you live alone? Yes. Does anyone else have access to your home or your checkbook? I thought about Brian, about the times he'd come over to help fix things, to mow the lawn, to check on me. He had a key. I'd given it to him years ago, emergency purposes. My son has a key, I said quietly. There was a pause. Mrs. Morrison, I'm going to recommend you come into the branch. We need to file a formal fraud report, and I need to show you something else, something that came up when I looked at your account. What? I asked. There's another account associated with your name, a business account, L. Morrison Consulting, LLC. It was opened 8 months ago. My chest felt tight. I didn't open a business account. According to our records, it was opened using power of attorney documents. Your son is listed as an authorized signer. Power of attorney. The papers I signed 3 months ago. The trust paperwork. I closed my eyes. It wasn't a trust. It was a power of attorney, and Brian had used it to open accounts in my name, to write checks, to take my money. I'll come in Monday morning, I said. I hung up, sat there at the kitchen table. The photo album's still open. 40 years of Thanksgiving photos, of me being there, of me being part of the family, of me giving everything I had, and now I was erased from the photo, and my money was gone. I didn't cry. I just sat there, looking at the pictures of who I used to be, before I knew, before I understood, before I realized that my only child had been stealing from me, and I wondered how long it had been going on, and how much more was there that I didn't know about yet. Monday morning, I drove to First National Bank. The branch manager, a woman named Karen Thompson, sat across from me in a small office. She'd pulled up my accounts on her computer. The business account, L. Morrison Consulting, LLC. When was this opened? I asked. March 15th of this year, Karen said. 8 months ago. The opening documents include power of attorney paperwork, signed by you, giving your son Brian Morrison authorization to open accounts and conduct business on your behalf. March 15th, 1 week after I'd signed those papers at Brian's house, 1 week after I thought I was setting up a family trust, Karen showed me the signature. It was mine, from the POA documents, but I'd never authorized a business account. I'd never even discussed it. How much money has gone through this account? I asked. She scrolled through the transactions. $15,000 in deposits, all transfers from your personal checking account, and $14,200 in withdrawals, various purchases, boat payments, vacation rentals, electronics, furniture. My hands were in my lap. I kept them there, kept them still. I didn't authorize any of this. Karen looked at me. Her expression was kind but professional. Mrs. Morrison, I need to ask you something. Do you have any memory issues? Any confusion about signing documents or authorizing transactions? No, I said. I'm 68 years old. I taught school for 35 years. I retired 3 years ago. My mind is fine. I was deceived. My son told me I was signing trust paperwork. I didn't know it was a power of attorney. She nodded slowly. Then we need to file a formal fraud report, and I'd recommend you speak with an attorney, someone who specializes in elder law, because if your son obtained that power of attorney through deception, that's financial exploitation. Elder law. Financial exploitation. The words felt heavy, clinical. I wasn't elderly. I was 68. I was independent. I lived alone. I managed my own affairs. But sitting in that bank office looking at those account records, I felt old. I felt foolish. I filed the fraud report, signed the paperwork. Karen gave me copies of everything, the business account statements, the power of attorney documents, the transaction history. I put it all in a folder, drove home. I sat in my car in the driveway for 10 minutes before I went inside. When I finally walked through the door, I went straight to the kitchen table, spread out all the papers Karen had given me, and I called Brian. He answered on the third ring. "Hey, Mom, what's up?" I took a breath. "Brian, I need to talk to you about my bank account." Silence. Then, "Okay, what about it?" "There are checks I didn't write. $8,000, $4,000, $3,000. Did you write those checks?" "Mom, you signed those checks. You don't remember." My chest tightened. "No, Brian, I didn't sign them." "Mom." His voice was patient. Too patient. Like he was talking to a confused child. "You've been forgetting things lately. Remember last month when you called me twice in one day asking what time dinner was?" I hadn't forgotten. I'd called once. He was lying. "Brian, I'm not confused. I know what I signed and what I didn't sign." "Maybe you should see a doctor. Get checked out. Memory issues are normal at your age." At your age? The words hit like a slap. He was gaslighting me, making me doubt myself, making me sound incompetent. "What about the business account?" I said. My voice was steady, calm. "L. Morrison Consulting. When did I authorize that?" Another pause. Longer this time. "That's the account we set up for the trust. Remember? The estate planning?" "It's not a trust, Brian. It's a business account, in my name, with you as an authorized signer. And you've been transferring money from my personal account into it, then spending it." "Mom, I think you're confused about how this works. We set this up to protect your assets, for tax purposes. I can explain it to you again if you want." I closed my eyes. He wasn't going to admit it. He was going to keep lying, keep making me sound irrational. "I need you to stop. No more checks, no more transfers. I'm freezing the accounts." "Mom, you can't just freeze the accounts. There are automatic payments set up, bills. You'll cause problems." "What bills, Brian? What automatic payments?" He didn't answer right away. Then, "Look, I'm at work. Can we talk about this later? You're obviously upset. Maybe you should rest. We can figure this out when you're calmer." When I was calmer. As if I was being hysterical. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I was asking questions and he was deflecting. "I'll call you later," I said, and I hung up. I sat there, hands on the table, the papers in front of me, and I felt something shift. It wasn't anger yet, it was clarity. Brian wasn't going to tell me the truth. He was going to lie, gaslight, make me doubt myself, which meant I needed proof, real proof, not just bank statements, but the actual power of attorney documents, the ones I'd signed. I needed to see what they said. 2 days later, on Wednesday afternoon, I drove to Brian's house. He was at work. At least, I assumed he was. Jessica's car wasn't in the driveway either. The kids would be at school until 3:30. I had time. I used my key, the one Brian had given me years ago, for emergencies. I walked through the front door. The house was quiet, neat. Jessica kept it clean. I felt strange being there without them knowing, like I was trespassing. But this was my son's house, a house I'd helped him buy, a down payment I'd paid for. I went to Brian's home office, the second bedroom upstairs. He had a desk, a filing cabinet. I opened the top drawer, manila folders, labeled mortgage, insurance, utilities, and there, at the back, a folder labeled Mom Estate. I pulled it out, opened it. The power of attorney documents were inside, dated March 8th, the day I'd signed them. I read through them carefully this time, slowly, every word. It was a durable power of attorney, giving Brian broad authority over my financial affairs, banking, investments, real estate, the right to open accounts, close accounts, transfer funds, buy and sell property, everything. There was no mention of a trust, no mention of estate planning for the grandchildren. It was just a power of attorney, full financial control, and I'd signed it. I felt sick. I took out my phone, photographed every page. Then I put the folder back exactly where I'd found it, closed the drawer, walked back downstairs. I was halfway to the front door when I heard a car in the driveway. I froze, looked out the window. Jessica's car. She was home early. I moved quickly, quietly, out the front door, down the steps. I was in my car before Jessica got out of hers. She waved at me, smiled. "Linda, I didn't know you were coming by." I rolled down my window, forced a smile. "I was just dropping something off. I'll call you later." I drove away before she could ask questions. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I'd nearly been caught, sneaking through my own son's house, looking for evidence that he was stealing from me. But I had it now, the power of attorney, the proof that he'd lied to me, that the trust paperwork was actually a document giving him complete access to my money. That night, I sat at my kitchen table again, the photographs of the power of attorney on my phone, and I started going through every bank statement I had from the past year, every single one, and I found them. Check after check after check. Dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, hotel stays in cities I'd never visited, purchases from stores I didn't shop at, a boat I didn't own, furniture I didn't buy, month after month. Going back not just 6 months, but 12 months. Maybe longer. Every check had my signature, or something close to my signature. Brian had been practicing, getting better at forging it, or maybe he'd been tracing it. Or maybe, and this made my stomach turn, maybe I'd signed blank checks at some point, signed them because he asked me to, because I trusted him, and he'd filled them in later. I didn't know. I didn't know how long this had been going on. I didn't know how much money was really gone, but I knew one thing. This wasn't confusion, this wasn't memory loss. This was theft, planned, systematic, ongoing. My son had been stealing from me for at least a year, maybe longer, and he'd done it with my own signature, with documents I'd signed because I trusted him. I sat there until midnight, going through the statements, adding up the numbers, and the total kept growing, $47,000. That's what I'd found so far, but I had a feeling there was more I hadn't discovered yet, more accounts, more cards, more ways he'd found to take my money. I looked at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd done this work for a year, where I'd made coffee every morning, where I'd sat with Margaret just days ago. This table had been witness to my whole life, to raising Brian, to planning lessons for my third graders, to grieving James, to realizing I'd been betrayed, and now it was covered in evidence. Evidence that my only child had been systematically stealing from me, and I didn't know what to do next. But I knew I couldn't stop. I had to find out how deep this went, because if he'd done this much, what else had he done that I didn't know about yet? The next morning, Thursday, I woke up at 6:30, made coffee. But this time, I had a plan. I needed to document everything, every piece of evidence, every transaction, every lie. If I was going to do something about this, I needed proof that couldn't be denied. I sat at the kitchen table, spread out every bank statement from the past 2 years, checking account, savings account, my retirement account statements, all of it. The papers covered the entire table. I put on my reading glasses, picked up a pen, started going through them line by line. Check number 2847, March 23rd, $8,200. Payee, Marine Sales and Service. Notation, boat down payment. My signature. Except it wasn't quite right. The loop on the L in Linda was too big. The tail on the N was too short. Someone had copied my signature, practiced it, got close, but not exact. Check number 2851, April 12th, $4,100. Payee, Elegant Affairs Catering. Notation, event services. The Thanksgiving dinner I wasn't invited to be photographed at. I'd paid for it. $4,000 for a family reunion where they erased me from the picture. Check number 2855, May 8th, $3,800. Payee, Lakeside Vacation Rentals, a week-long vacation I never took. Check number 2862, June 2nd, $2,900. Payee, Northwood Country Club. Membership dues. I wasn't a member, but Brian was. Now I knew who was paying for it. I went through every statement, March to November, 9 months, 7 checks from my checkbook, total $23,400. But that wasn't all. My retirement savings account, the one I'd been building since I was 25 years old, the one that was supposed to carry me through my retirement. There were transfers, from savings to checking. Then the checks written from checking, March 15th. Transfer $8,000, April 10th. Transfer $6,000, May 5th. Transfer $5,000, June 1st. Transfer $3,000, July 12th. Transfer $4,000, August 2nd. Transfer $5,000, 6 transfers, $31,000, moved from my retirement savings into checking, then written out as checks, spent on boats and vacations and country club memberships. I added it up. $23,000 from checking, $31,000 from savings, $54,400 gone. I sat there at the kitchen table. The statement spread out in front of me, my coffee cooling in the blue mug. My hands were shaking. I set down the pen, took off my reading glasses, and I just sat there. $54,000. I'd worked 35 years to save that money. Double shifts, summer school, tutoring on weekends, every penny counted, every dollar saved, and my son had taken it. $54,000 just gone. I sat there at the kitchen table. $54,000. I'd worked 35 years to save that money, and it was just gone. I called Tom Bradford, my financial advisor. I'd been working with him for 8 years, ever since James died. He'd helped me manage my pension, my retirement accounts, plan my budget. He was good at his job, patient, thorough. I trusted him. "Linda," he said when he answered, "how are you?" "Tom, I need your help. Can I come see you today? It's urgent." "Of course. I have an opening at 2 this afternoon. Will that work?" It would. At 2 o'clock, I sat in Tom's office, the same office where we'd met every quarter for the past 8 years. I showed him everything, the bank statements, the photographs of the power of attorney documents, the business account records. Tom went through it all carefully. He didn't say much at first, just read, scrolled through his computer, made notes. Finally, he looked up. "Linda, this is bad. The power of attorney gives Brian access to everything. Your checking, your savings, your retirement accounts, and he's used it to open a business account in your name without your knowledge." "Can he do that legally?" I asked. "Legally? With a power of attorney, yes. He has the authority. But ethically? Morally? No. A power of attorney is supposed to be used in your best interest, not his. What he's done is called financial exploitation. It's elder abuse." There was that phrase again. Elder abuse. I hated it, but I couldn't deny it anymore. Tom pulled up something else on his computer. "Linda, there's something else you need to know. I checked your property records. The cabin, the one you inherited from James in northern Wisconsin." "What about it?" I asked. My chest tightened. The deed was modified in April. Brian was added as a joint owner with right of survivorship, which means if you die, the cabin goes to him automatically. No probate, no will, just his. I stared at Tom. I didn't authorize that. "He used the power of attorney," Tom said quietly. "He filed the paperwork with the county. It's legal. But again, it's not in your best interest. It's in his." The cabin was worth $180,000. James and I had bought it 30 years ago. It was where we'd spent summers, where we'd taken Brian fishing, where we'd celebrated anniversaries. And now Brian had put his name on it, without asking, without telling me. "How much total?" I asked. My voice was steady, calm. "How much has he taken?" Tom calculated. "The checks, the savings transfers, the business account transfers. $54,400 in direct theft. The cabin deed change doesn't take money from you now, but it removes $180,000 from your estate when you die. If you include that, we're looking at over $230,000 in financial impact. $230,000. I felt dizzy. Tom showed me the business account. On his screen, L. Morrison Consulting LLC, opened March 15th. 8 months of transactions, deposits, all from my personal checking account, $15,000 total, withdrawals, boat payment, $8,900, vacation expenses, $4,200 electronics, $1,900 furniture, $800 restaurant bills, clothing, gift purchases. He's using it like a personal account, Tom said, hiding purchases behind a business name, and because it's in your name, any tax implications fall on you. The IRS sent you notices about unreported business income. Did you see those? I had. I thought they were a mistake. I'd thrown them away. You'll need to file amended tax returns, Tom said. Explain that this was fraud. You didn't operate a business. This will complicate things. Everything was complicating. Tom helped me access the email account I rarely used. I'd given Brian the password years ago. He'd helped me set it up. Now I wondered what else he had access to. We searched for emails between Brian and Jessica. Tom knew how to do searches by date range and keywords. Within minutes, we found them. March 18th, Brian to Jessica. I asked Mom to sign the POA. She thinks it's for a trust. I feel terrible, but we need this. June 5th, Brian to Jessica. Another $5,000 from Mom's account. She hasn't noticed yet. I'll pay her back when the new job comes through. August 14th, Jessica to Brian. What if she finds out? Brian's response, she won't. She never checks her statements carefully, and if she does, I'll tell her she's confused. October 28th, Brian to Jessica. Mom asked about the checks today. I told her she's been forgetting things. I think she believed me. I read those emails, every word, and something inside me cracked. Not broke, just cracked. Like ice on a lake in early spring. A thin line, a warning that something was about to give way. There's more, Tom said. He pulled up credit reports. My credit reports. 3 credit cards were opened in your name this year. Did you apply for these? I hadn't. They were opened using your information and the power of attorney. Total balance across all 3 cards, $18,300. He showed me the statements. Capital One, $6,800. Electronics, clothing, restaurant charges. Chase Visa, $7,400. Vacation expenses, hotel stays, flights to Florida. Discover card, $4,100. Home improvement purchases, furniture, appliances. These accounts are 30 days past due, Tom said. Your credit score has dropped from 780 to 640. Late payments are being reported. My credit, my good credit, that I'd maintained my entire adult life, ruined. I sat in Tom's office, looking at the computer screen, at the numbers, at the evidence of systematic theft that had been going on for 9 months, maybe longer. And I felt something I hadn't felt before. Not confusion anymore, not even sadness. Something harder, something cold and clear, determination. What do? I asked Tom. You need a lawyer, he said, an elder law attorney, someone who specializes in financial exploitation cases. I know someone, Susan Walker. She's good. She's helped other clients in similar situations. Can you give me her number? He wrote it down on a business card, handed it to me. Linda, I'm sorry. I should have seen this. I should have noticed the unusual activity. It's not your fault, I said. I didn't see it either, and I'm his mother. I called Susan Walker from my car in the parking lot. She answered after 2 rings. I told her I needed help, that my son had been stealing from me, that I had evidence. She asked me to come in the next day, Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock. I drove home. It was almost 5. The sun was setting. November evenings got dark early. I pulled into my driveway, sat in the car for a minute. Then I picked up my phone. I texted Brian. I know about the business account. I know about the credit cards. I know what you've done. We need to talk. I sent it before I could change my mind. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Brian. I didn't answer. He called again. I still didn't answer. Then a text came through. Mom, I can explain. Please call me. You're misunderstanding everything. I wasn't misunderstanding. I understood perfectly now. I went inside, made dinner, ate alone at the kitchen table. The same table covered in bank statements and evidence. I didn't move the papers. I left them there, a reminder of what had been taken, of what I needed to do. That evening, Margaret came by. She'd seen my car in the driveway, knew I'd been gone all day. She knocked on the door, came in without waiting for an answer. That was Margaret. She looked at the kitchen table, at all the papers, at me. You found more, she said. $54,000 in cash, $18,000 in credit card debt, a $180,000 cabin he put his name on without asking, and emails where he planned it all, where he and Jessica discussed how I'd never notice, where he practiced what he'd say if I found out. Margaret sat down across from me. She didn't bring a casserole this time. She just sat. What are you going to do? I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow, an elder law attorney. I'm going to file charges, or a lawsuit, or whatever she tells me I can do, because I can't let this go. I can't pretend this didn't happen. He stole from me, my own son, and he lied about it, and he tried to make me think I was losing my mind. Good, Margaret said. It's about time. We sat there for a while, not talking, just sitting, and I was grateful. For Margaret, for her practical, no-nonsense way of being there, for not telling me it would be okay, for not making excuses for Brian, for just sitting with me while I processed what came next. Because I knew what came next. A lawyer, a legal case, confrontation, boundaries, family fallout, all of it. But first, I needed to see Susan Walker. I needed to know what my options were, what I could actually do, how to stop this, how to get my money back, how to protect myself from my own son. I went to bed that night at 10, didn't sleep much, just lay there, thinking about $54,000, about $18,000 in debt, about a cabin with Brian's name on it, about emails and lies and forged signatures. And I thought about the photo, the family photo from Thanksgiving, where I wasn't included, where I'd been erased while I paid for everything. I'd spent my whole life giving, teaching, caring for others, raising Brian alone, working double shifts so he could go to college, paying for his wedding, his house, his car, his business loan, $212,000 over 25 years. And this is what I got. Theft, lies, erasure. But I wasn't erased. I was still here, still standing, still capable of fighting back. Tomorrow, I'd meet with Susan Walker, and I'd find out what came next. Friday afternoon, I sat in Susan Walker's office. Elder law attorney. The title still felt strange. Elder law. As if I was old, fragile, someone who needed special protection. But maybe I did. Maybe that's what this was about. Susan's office was professional, clean, books on shelves about estate planning and financial abuse, a framed law degree from University of Michigan. She was younger than I expected, 49 maybe, short dark hair, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She looked capable, direct. I showed her everything, the bank statements, the power of attorney documents, the business account records, the emails, the credit card statements. She went through it all carefully, made notes on a yellow legal pad, asked questions, listened. When she finished, she looked up at me. Linda, what your son has done is called financial exploitation. It's a form of elder abuse, and you have an extremely strong case. What are my options? I asked. Several, she said. She counted on her fingers. 1. You can file a civil lawsuit. Sue Brian for the full amount he took, plus damages and legal fees. 2. You can file criminal charges. theft, fraud, forgery. Those are felonies. 3. You can pursue mediation. Sit down with attorneys present and negotiate a settlement, restitution, payment plan, boundaries. I sat there, processing, a lawsuit, criminal charges, mediation. All of it felt heavy, final. Like once I chose, there was no going back. "What would you recommend?" I asked. Susan leaned forward. "That depends on what you want. Do you want your money back? Do you want Brian held accountable? Do you want to maintain a relationship with him? Or do you want to cut ties completely?" I didn't know how to answer that. Part of me wanted to say, I want my son back, the one I raised, the one who used to hug me and say thank you, the one who wasn't a thief, but that person didn't exist anymore. Maybe he never had. "I want my money back," I said finally. "I want to be protected. I want to make sure he can't do this again, to me or anyone else." Susan nodded. "Then I'd recommend mediation first. It's less costly than a lawsuit, less time-consuming, and it gives you more control over the outcome. You can negotiate terms, restitution, no contact orders if you want them, future boundaries. If mediation fails, we can still pursue civil or criminal charges." "What if he doesn't agree to mediation?" "Then we file a lawsuit, and we have enough evidence to win. The emails alone prove intent, prove he knew what he was doing was wrong. But mediation is faster, and given that there are grandchildren involved, it might be the better path for everyone." I thought about Emma and Tyler, my grandchildren, who had nothing to do with this, who I didn't want to lose. "How long does mediation take?" I asked. "We file the initial demand letter now, give him 30 days to respond. If he agrees to mediation, we schedule it, usually within 60 to 90 days. So we're looking at 3 to 4 months from start to finish." 3 to 4 months. 3 to 4 months of waiting, of stress, of not knowing how this would end. "What do I need to do?" I asked. "Sign the retainer agreement. Give me permission to contact Brian's attorney, or to send Brian a letter if he doesn't have an attorney yet. And you need to take immediate steps to protect yourself. Revoke the power of attorney, freeze your accounts, change all passwords, remove Brian's access to everything." I nodded. "I can do that." Susan slid a folder across the desk. "These are the forms to revoke the power of attorney. You need to sign them, get them notarized, then file them with the county. I can help you with that. And call your bank today. Tell them to freeze all accounts. No withdrawals without your in-person approval." I took the folder, opened it. The forms looked official, legal, final. "One more thing," Susan said. "You need to prepare yourself for how Brian will respond. He'll likely deny everything at first. Then he'll make excuses, financial stress, desperation. He'll say he was going to pay you back, that it was a loan, not theft. He might accuse you of being confused, of misunderstanding. He'll try to manipulate you, to make you doubt yourself. You need to be ready for that." I thought about the phone call, about Brian telling me I was forgetting things, about him saying I needed to see a doctor. "He's already done that," I said. Susan's expression softened, just slightly. "Then you know what to expect. Stay strong. Remember why you're doing this, and don't let him gaslight you." I signed the retainer agreement. Susan made copies of all my evidence, said she'd start drafting the demand letter today, that she'd send it by Monday, that I should expect Brian to respond within a week or two, that things were going to move quickly now. I drove home. It was almost 5. The sun was setting again. I felt strange. Not relieved exactly, not empowered, just clear. Like I'd been walking through fog for months, and suddenly I could see the path in front of me. When I got home, I didn't go straight inside. I sat in my car in the driveway, and I thought about Christmas, 5 years ago, December 2019, before James died, before COVID, before everything changed. We'd all been at my house, the one I decorated, the tree in the corner, lights strung along the mantel. James was there, healthy, smiling. Brian was there with Jessica. Emma was 6. Tyler was 3. They'd run through the house, excited about presents, about cookies, about Grandma and Grandpa's house. I'd made dinner, pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, rolls, apple pie. I'd spent 2 days preparing. James had helped. We'd laughed in the kitchen, tasted the gravy, argued about how much butter to put in the potatoes. Normal things, happy things. Brian had helped me set the table. We'd talked about his job, about Emma starting first grade, about Tyler's speech, therapy, normal things, good things. After dinner, we'd taken a photo, all of us in front of the tree. James had his arm around me. Brian was on my other side, his arm around my shoulders, Jessica holding Tyler, Emma between James and Brian, everyone smiling, everyone together. Brian had hugged me that night, before they left, a real hug, held on for a few seconds. "Thanks for everything, Mom," he'd said. "I don't know what we'd do without you." And I'd believed him. I'd believed he was grateful, that he loved me, that all the money I'd given him over the years meant something, that I was helping, that I was building a relationship with my son and my grandchildren that was 5 years ago, now. November 2024. I wasn't in the family photo. I'd been erased while I paid for the dinner. $54,000 stolen, $18,000 in debt. My credit ruined. My son lying to me, gaslighting me, treating me like I was losing my mind. I sat in my car, and I felt the difference between then and now, between who I thought Brian was and who he actually was, between the mother who couldn't say no and the woman I needed to become. I sat in the lawyer's office looking at those papers, 25 years of being the family bank, and I realized I didn't recognize the person who'd taken that photo, my own child, a stranger. I went inside, walked through my house, the same house I'd lived in for 40 years, the same walls, the same furniture, but it felt different now, smaller somehow, or maybe I felt bigger, more solid. I went to the living room, looked at the walls, the shelves, the mantel, family photos everywhere. Brian as a baby, Brian as a teenager, Brian's wedding, Brian with Emma, Brian with Tyler, 40 years of photos, 40 years of memories, most of them good, but some of them weren't real. Or maybe they were real at the time, but they didn't mean what I thought they meant. Brian hugging me at Christmas, thanking me, while planning to take my money, to forge my signature, to erase me from family photos. I started taking the pictures down, one by one, the wedding photo, the Christmas photo from 2019, the baby pictures, the graduation pictures, all of them, every single photo that had Brian in it. I took them off the walls, off the shelves, off the mantel. I found a cardboard box in the garage, brought it inside, started packing the photos, carefully. I wasn't angry, I wasn't crying. I was just doing it, methodically, like grading papers, like organizing my classroom, one thing at a time, one photo at a time. The frames made soft sounds as I stacked them in the box. Click, click, click. 40 years of photos, going into a box. I kept some. The photos of James, the photos of me and Diane as children, the photos of Emma and Tyler by themselves. Without Brian, those I left up, those were still mine. But Brian, Jessica, the family unit that had excluded me, stolen from me, lied to me, those went in the box. When I was finished, I wrote on the side of the box with a black marker, Brian, 1982-2024. The years I'd known him, raised him, trusted him. Those years were over now. I carried the box to the garage, set it on a shelf, went back inside. The living room looked different, emptier, but cleaner somehow, like I'd removed something that didn't belong there anymore, like I'd been holding on to a family that didn't exist. I stood in the middle of the room, looked at the walls, the empty spaces where the photos had been, and I felt something shift inside me, not anger, not sadness, something else, something like clarity, like strength. I'd been making excuses for Brian my whole life. when he quit his first job after 2 weeks, when he borrowed money and didn't pay it back, when his business failed and I paid half his loan, when he asked for help with private school tuition while driving a new SUV. I'd made excuses. He's stressed. He's trying his best. He's my son. Family comes first. But family didn't mean being a doormat. It didn't mean letting someone steal from you. It didn't mean enabling bad behavior because you were too afraid to say no. I picked up my phone, called the bank, told them to freeze my accounts, no withdrawals without my in-person approval. The representative said she'd put a fraud alert on everything, said it would take effect immediately, said I'd need to come in Monday to sign new paperwork. I called Tom Bradford, left a message, told him I'd retained an attorney, that we were pursuing legal action, that I needed his help documenting everything for the case. Then I called my sister, Diane. We'd talked a few times since Thanksgiving. She'd asked if I was okay. I'd said I was fine, but I wasn't fine. And she knew it. "Linda?" she answered. "Everything okay?" "Diane, I need to tell you something. About Brian. About what's been happening." I told her everything. The checks, the power of attorney, the business account, the credit cards, the cabin deed, the emails. All of it. Diane was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I knew something was wrong. At Thanksgiving, when you weren't in the photo, I asked them where you were. They said you didn't want to be in it. But that didn't sound like you. And then you left early. I wanted to call. I should have called." "It's not your fault," I said. "What are you going to do?" "I hired a lawyer. We're filing for mediation, demanding restitution. I'm revoking the power of attorney, freezing my accounts, setting boundaries." Diane was quiet again. Then, "Good. It's about time someone held him accountable. I love Brian. He's my nephew. But what he's done is wrong, and I'm on your side. Whatever you need." "Thank you," I said, and I meant it. "Do you have your estate planning in order?" Diane asked. "Your will? Your medical directives?" "Not updated in years," I admitted. "Then that's next," Diane said. "You need to remove Brian from everything. Medical power of attorney, will, beneficiaries, everything. And we need to set up something so this can't happen again. Maybe a trust, with me as trustee." "Okay," I said. "I'll talk to Susan about it." "I'm coming up next weekend," Diane said. "I'll stay a few days, help you get everything organized. You shouldn't do this alone." "Thank you," I said again. My voice broke, just slightly. Just for a second. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I'd discovered the theft, where I'd gone through the evidence, where Margaret had sat with me, where I'd made 1,000 cups of coffee while trying to figure out what to do. I made another cup now, the blue mug, James's anniversary gift. I sat down, looked at the empty walls in the living room, at the space where the photos used to be. I'd been holding on to a family that didn't exist anymore, holding on to a version of Brian that maybe never existed. The grateful son, the loving child, the person who appreciated everything I'd done. But that person, if he'd ever been real, was gone now. Or maybe he'd never been there at all. Maybe I'd just wanted to believe he was. I took a sip of coffee. It was hot, fresh, better than all the cold cups I'd let sit while staring at bank statements. I made a decision that night, sitting at my kitchen table, in my empty living room, in the house I'd lived in for 40 years. I wasn't going to let this go. I wasn't going to make excuses. I wasn't going to say it was okay because he's family, because he's stressed, because he's my son. I was going to fight. Not for revenge, not to hurt him, but to protect myself, to get my money back, to make sure he couldn't do this again, to me or to anyone else. I'd spent 68 years being the person who couldn't say no, the person who always helped, the person who put family first, even at her own expense. But I was done with that person. She'd put all those photos on the walls. She'd signed those checks. She'd trusted too easily. She'd enabled too much, and now she was gone, packed in a box with the photos, stored in the garage with the past. What was left was someone different, someone harder, someone who knew how to set boundaries, how to say no, how to protect herself. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if Brian would agree to mediation, if he'd pay me back, if we'd ever have a relationship again, if I'd see Emma and Tyler, if the family I'd built over 40 years could be salvaged. But I knew this. I was done being a victim, done being taken advantage of, done making excuses. Susan would send the demand letter Monday. Brian would receive it Tuesday or Wednesday, and then things would start moving, for better or worse. I finished my coffee, washed the mug, put it in the dish drainer, turned off the lights, and for the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. Monday morning, Susan sent the demand letter. I got a copy via email, formal, legal, clear. It laid out everything: the unauthorized checks, the power of attorney obtained through deception, the business account, the credit cards, the property deed change, total damages, $72,000, $54,000 in theft, $18,000 in debt. The letter demanded full restitution, revocation of the power of attorney, removal from all accounts, and mediation to resolve the matter. It gave Brian 30 days to respond. 3 days later, on Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't answer. A voicemail came through 2 minutes later. Mrs. Morrison, this is David Chen from Chen & Associates. I'm calling on behalf of your son, Brian Morrison. I've been retained to represent him in this matter. Please have your attorney contact me at your earliest convenience. Brian had hired a lawyer. I forwarded the voicemail to Susan. She called me back an hour later. Linda, I spoke with Mr. Chen. Brian is contesting the claim. He's saying the power of attorney was legitimate, that you gave him permission to manage your finances, that the transfers and checks were authorized, and he's claiming you've been experiencing memory issues, cognitive decline, that you're confused about what you agreed to. My chest tightened. He's lying. I know, Susan said, but he's going to make us prove it, which means we need documentation, medical records, cognitive evaluation, proof that you're fully competent and that his claims are false. What do I need to do? See your doctor. Get a full cognitive evaluation, memory tests, mental status exam. We need medical documentation that shows there's nothing wrong with your mind. Can you do that this week? Yes, I said. I called my doctor's office. Dr. Patterson. I'd been seeing her for 15 years. She had an opening Friday morning. I took it. That same Thursday, late evening, my phone buzzed. A text from Brian. Mom, I'm sorry. I never wanted it to come to this. I made mistakes. I was desperate. Let's work this out between us. No lawyers. I'll pay you back. I promise. Please. I read it 3 times. Part of me, the part that had raised him, that had loved him for 42 years, wanted to believe him, wanted to say yes, wanted to make this go away without courts and lawyers and legal battles. But another part of me, the part that had boxed up his photos, that had signed the retainer agreement, that had frozen my accounts, knew better. I called Susan, read her the text. What should I do? I asked. Nothing, Susan said. Don't respond. This is a manipulation tactic. Classic behavior from financial abusers. They get caught, they hire a lawyer, and then they try to get the victim to drop the case by appealing to emotion. If you respond, if you agree to talk without lawyers, you give him an opportunity to manipulate you further. We've already filed the demand. We're moving forward. Let him communicate through his attorney. I didn't respond to the text. 2 more texts came through over the next hour. Mom, please, think of Emma and Tyler. Think of the family. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. Just call off the lawyers. I blocked his number. The next 4 months were a blur of legal procedures and waiting. Susan filed the formal complaint in January. Brian's attorney responded with a counterclaim in February, alleging that I had given permission for all transactions and that I was now experiencing memory issues that made me unreliable. The counterclaim requested a psychological evaluation and suggested I might need a guardian. I underwent a full cognitive assessment in February with Dr. Patterson, memory tests, clock drawing, word recall, math problems. It was humiliating. At 68 years old, having to prove I was competent, having to count backwards from 100 by sevens, having to remember 3 words after 5 minutes. But I did it. And I scored in the 98th percentile for my age group. Dr. Patterson wrote a detailed report. No signs of dementia, no memory impairment, fully capable of managing my own affairs. March brought depositions. I sat in a conference room and answered questions under oath for 4 hours. Brian's attorney asked about every check, every transfer, every signature. Asked if I was sure I didn't remember giving Brian permission. Asked about my medications, my health, my daily routines, trying to find inconsistencies, trying to make me look confused. I wasn't confused. I was exhausted, but I was clear. Brian gave his deposition too. I wasn't there. But Susan told me he claimed I'd asked him to handle my finances, that I'd been forgetting things, that he was just trying to help. He admitted to opening the business account, to writing checks, but he said it was all with my knowledge and consent. He was lying, and we had the emails to prove it. By April, both sides had exchanged evidence packets, bank statements, medical records, the power of attorney documents, the emails where Brian and Jessica discussed how I'd never noticed the missing money, the credit card statements, all of it. Everything laid out on paper. The mediation was scheduled for May 15th, 4 months after Susan sent the first demand letter, 4 months of stress and legal paperwork and sleepless nights. But I was ready. A week before mediation, on May 8th, my phone rang. Jessica, Brian's wife. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Linda," she said. Her voice was quiet, strained. "I need to talk to you." "Okay," I said. "This is tearing our family apart. Brian is stressed. The kids are confused. Emma asked me yesterday why she hasn't seen you. I didn't know what to tell her. I didn't say anything, just waited. I know what Brian did was wrong," Jessica continued. "I know he took money he shouldn't have, but he's trying to make it right. He wants to pay you back. He's getting a new job. He's been interviewing. If you could just drop the lawsuit, give him a chance to fix this without lawyers, for the kids' sake." I closed my eyes, thought about Emma and Tyler, about how I missed them, about how this wasn't their fault. But then I thought about the emails, the ones where Jessica had asked Brian, what if she finds out? The ones where she'd known, where she'd been complicit. "Jessica," I said, you knew he was taking the money. You knew about the business account. You knew about the power of attorney, and you didn't stop him. You didn't warn me. You helped him." Silence on the other end. "This isn't about tearing the family apart," I said. "Brian tore it apart when he stole from me, when he lied to me, when he tried to make me think I was losing my mind. I'm not dropping the lawsuit. I'm not giving him another chance to manipulate me. The mediation is in a week. If he wants to make this right, he can do it there. With lawyers? With accountability. Linda, I love Emma and Tyler," I said, "but this isn't about them. This is about what's right. And what Brian did was wrong. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle, but I didn't put you there. He did." I hung up. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding, but I felt clear, certain. Margaret came by that evening. She'd been checking on me regularly over the past 4 months, bringing casseroles, sitting with me, not saying much, just being there. "Jessica called," I told her. "Tried to get me to drop the lawsuit, for the kids." Margaret shook her head. "That's manipulation." "I know," I said. I told her no. Good. We sat at the kitchen table, drank coffee. Margaret had brought banana bread this time, homemade. We didn't talk about Brian. We talked about the garden club's spring plant sale, about Margaret's daughter visiting from California, about the weather, normal things, small things, things that had nothing to do with lawyers and lawsuits and betrayal. It helped. The cognitive evaluation with Dr. Patterson had been one of the hardest parts. I'd sat in her office in February feeling humiliated, feeling old, feeling like I had to prove something I shouldn't have to prove. "Linda," Dr. Patterson had said, looking at me over her reading glasses, "I need to conduct a full mental status examination. It's standard procedure when there are legal questions about competency. I understand, I'd said. The tests were simple. Children's tests. Count backwards from 100 by sevens. Draw a clock showing 3:15. Remember 3 words: apple, table, penny. Repeat them back after 5 minutes. I'd felt ridiculous. I'd taught elementary school for 35 years. I'd graded thousands of tests, helped hundreds of children learn to read and write and do math. And here I was at 68 years old, drawing clocks and remembering words like a 3rd grader. But I did it. Perfectly. 98th percentile for my age group. Your cognitive function is excellent, Dr. Patterson had said when we reviewed the results. No signs of memory impairment, no signs of dementia or confusion. You are fully competent to manage your own affairs, and I'll document that in my report. I'd thanked her, but inside, I'd felt angry. Angry that I had to prove this. Angry that Brian had put me in this position. Angry that my own son was trying to make me look incompetent so he could keep the money he'd stolen. A week later, in March, I'd met with my book club friends, Margaret, Carol, and Ruth. We met every month, had for 10 years, usually at the coffee shop on Main Street. We'd discuss the book, drink coffee, talk about life. That month, I'd told them what was happening, about Brian, about the lawsuit, about the cognitive evaluation. I didn't want to, I felt embarrassed, but Margaret had insisted. They're your friends, she'd said. They should know. So I told them. Carol and Ruth had listened quietly. When I finished, Carol reached across the table and squeezed my hand. My nephew did something similar to my sister, she'd said. 5 years ago, took $40,000. She didn't pursue it legally. She regretted it. Because he did it again, to my mother. If you don't stop this now, he'll do it to someone else. Ruth had nodded. You're doing the right thing. It's hard, but it's right. They didn't offer solutions, didn't try to fix it. They just sat with me, drank coffee with me, reminded me I wasn't alone. It had helped more than they knew. The day the counterclaim arrived in February, I'd felt my stomach drop. I'd read through the legal document, Brian's attorney claiming I was experiencing cognitive decline, requesting a psychological evaluation, suggesting I might need a guardian, someone to manage my affairs, to make decisions for me, because my own son was claiming I couldn't manage them myself. I'd called Susan immediately. Can he do this? Can he actually get a guardian appointed? No, Susan had said firmly. Not with Dr. Patterson's evaluation, not with your clear testimony and depositions, not with the evidence we have. This is a scare tactic. He's trying to intimidate you into dropping the case. Don't let him. But it had scared me. For a few days, I'd worried. What if a judge believed him? What if they thought I was confused? What if I lost control of my own life? Then Dr. Patterson's report had come through, and I'd stopped worrying because I had proof, medical proof, legal proof, evidence that I was fine, that Brian was lying, and that made me more determined than ever. Over those 4 months, my family divided. Diane was solidly on my side. She came up in January like she'd promised, helped me organize my estate planning, helped me update my will, my medical directives, my beneficiaries. She became my designated trustee, my medical power of attorney, the person I trusted. Paul, Diane's husband, tried to stay neutral at first. Maybe you two can work it out, he'd said. But Diane had shut that down. Paul, he stole from her. There's no working that out. Pick a side. He'd picked ours. Extended family was harder. Some cousins thought I was being too harsh. He's your son. Family forgives. Others understood. You have to protect yourself. But mostly, people stayed quiet, uncomfortable, not wanting to get involved. I didn't blame them. This wasn't their fight. The week before mediation, Susan and I met 3 times. We reviewed every piece of evidence, practiced my testimony, prepared for questions, prepared for Brian's excuses, for his attempts to manipulate, for his claims that it was all a misunderstanding. Remember, Susan said, stay calm, stick to the facts. Don't let emotion derail you. We have the evidence. We have the emails. We have Dr. Patterson's evaluation. We have everything we need. Just stay strong. I nodded. I was ready. 4 months of waiting. 4 months of legal procedures and stress and sleepless nights. But it was almost over. Mediation was in 3 days. May 15th, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was going to get my money back. May 15th, 9 o'clock in the morning. I arrived at Susan's law office 30 minutes early. I'd barely slept the night before, not from anxiety, from readiness. I'd been preparing for this moment for 4 months. I knew what I needed to say. I knew what the evidence showed. I was ready. Susan met me in the lobby. "How are you feeling?" "Ready," I said. She smiled. "Good. Let's go over the plan one more time." We sat in her office. She reviewed the evidence packets, the order of presentation, the witness testimonies, the settlement terms we'd propose, restitution, boundaries, no contact provisions if I wanted them, everything laid out clearly. "Remember," Susan said, "stay calm, let the evidence speak. Don't let Brian or his attorney provoke you. We have everything we need, the emails, the medical evaluation, the bank records, all of it. Just stay focused." I nodded. I was focused. At 8:55, we walked to the conference room, large table, windows overlooking Main Street, 8 chairs. A mediation is not a trial, no judge, no jury, just a neutral third party, the mediator, who facilitates negotiation between both sides. The goal is settlement, agreement, resolution without going to court. The mediator arrived first, a woman in her 60s named Patricia Morrison, no relation to me despite the shared last name. She introduced herself, explained the process. Both sides would present their case. She would ask questions, facilitate discussion, help us reach an agreement if possible. If we couldn't agree, the case would proceed to civil court. At 9 o'clock exactly, the door opened. Brian walked in, followed by Jessica, followed by their attorney, David Chen. I hadn't seen Brian in person since Thanksgiving, 6 months ago. The day I discovered the theft, he looked thinner, older, tired. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Jessica looked like she'd been crying. Red eyes, tissue in her hand. She sat down next to Brian, across the table from me. David Chen sat at the head of the table, professional, composed, briefcase open, legal pads ready. Susan sat next to me. Patricia, the mediator, sat at the other end of the table. Between us, neutral ground. "Good morning," Patricia said. "Thank you all for being here. Let's begin. Ms. Walker, you represent Mrs. Morrison. Would you like to present your case first?" Susan stood. "Thank you. I'd like to start by laying out the evidence." She opened her folder. One by one, she placed documents on the table. In the center, where everyone could see them, bank statements, 3 months' worth, highlighted transactions, check numbers, amounts, dates, the power of attorney document, signed by me in March, obtained, I now knew, through deception, the business account records, L. Morrison Consulting, LLC, opened without my knowledge, transfers in, purchases out, email printouts, Brian to Jessica, March through October. She'll never notice. I'll pay her back when the new job comes through. If she finds out, I'll tell her she's confused. Credit card statements, 3 cards, $18,000 in debt, opened in my name, without my permission, property deed, my cabin in northern Wisconsin, Brian's name added, joint ownership with right of survivorship, filed in April using the power of attorney. The papers covered the table, a paper trail, evidence, proof. Susan spoke clearly, calmly, professionally. Mrs. Morrison's son, Brian Morrison, obtained power of attorney in March of this year under false pretenses. He told her she was signing trust documents to protect her grandchildren's inheritance. She signed, believing him. She trusted him. What she actually signed was a durable power of attorney, giving Brian complete access to her financial accounts. Susan pointed to the bank statements. Over the next 9 months, Brian used that power of attorney to systematically steal from his mother. He wrote checks from her account, forged her signature, transferred money from her retirement savings, opened a business account in her name, applied for credit cards in her name, and modified property deeds. Total financial impact, $72,000, $54,000 in direct theft, $18,000 in fraudulent debt. She picked up the email printouts. These emails show intent, show knowledge of wrongdoing, show that Brian and his wife Jessica knew this was theft. Not a misunderstanding, not confusion, theft. David Chen, Brian's attorney, cleared his throat. My client disputes these characterizations. Mrs. Morrison is 68 years old. She has been experiencing memory issues. She gave my client permission to manage her finances. The power of attorney was legitimate. The transactions were authorized. Mrs. Morrison is simply confused about what she agreed to. Susan didn't miss a beat. We anticipated this defense, which is why we have medical documentation. She placed Dr. Patterson's report on the table. In February of this year, Mrs. Morrison underwent a comprehensive cognitive evaluation by her physician of 15 years, Dr. Elizabeth Patterson. The evaluation included memory tests, mental status examination, and cognitive function assessment. Results: Mrs. Morrison scored in the 98th percentile for her age group, no signs of dementia, no memory impairment, fully competent. Dr. Patterson's conclusion: Mrs. Morrison is completely capable of managing her own affairs and has been throughout this entire period. David Chen's expression tightened. He looked at Brian. Brian was staring at the table. Additionally, Susan continued, we have witness testimony. Mr. Tom Bradford, Mrs. Morrison's financial advisor of 8 years, will testify to her competence and the unusual nature of these transactions. And we have Mrs. Morrison's own testimony from depositions. Clear, consistent, detailed. She is not confused. She was deceived. Patricia, the mediator, looked at the documents on the table, then at Brian, then at me. Mrs. Morrison, would you like to add anything? I looked across the table at Brian. My son, the child I'd raised, the man who'd stolen from me. I'd practiced what I wanted to say. With Susan, with Margaret, with Diane. I'd written it down, rehearsed it, made sure I could say it without crying, without breaking down. I spoke. My voice was steady, calm, firm. Brian, I need you to understand something. I gave you everything I could. $65,000 for college, 4 years of tuition. I worked double shifts to afford it. $35,000 for your wedding, 200 guests, open bar. I wanted you to have a beautiful day. $50,000 for the down payment on your house. That money came from my retirement fund, the fund I'd been building since I was 25. $22,000 for a car, $40,000 when I co-signed your business loan, and when your business failed, I paid half of it back, $212,000 over 25 years. I gave it willingly, because I loved you, because you're my son. I paused. Let that sink in. But you didn't ask for this $47,000. I pointed to the bank statements. You took it. You lied to me about the power of attorney. You told me it was a trust. It wasn't. And you used it to steal from me. You opened accounts in my name. You forged my signature. You spent my retirement savings on boats and vacations and country club memberships. And when I found out, you tried to make me think I was losing my mind. You told me I was confused, that I was forgetting things, that I needed to see a doctor. My voice didn't waver. I kept my eyes on Brian. He still wouldn't look at me. You didn't just take my money, Brian. You took my trust. You took my dignity. You erased me from the family photo while cashing my checks. That's not desperation. That's betrayal. The room was silent. Brian's hands were on the table, shaking slightly. Jessica was crying quietly. David Chen was taking notes. Patricia spoke. Mr. Morrison, would you like to respond? Brian finally looked up. His eyes were red. Mom, His voice broke. I'm sorry. I lost my job. Jessica's medical bills, the kids' school. I was drowning. I thought I could pay you back. I thought the new job would come through and I could return everything before you noticed. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me, I said. And you kept doing it. For 9 months. Check after check. Transfer after transfer. This wasn't one mistake. This was a choice. Over and over again. Tom Bradford, my financial advisor, spoke next. Susan had invited him to attend, to provide professional testimony. He'd been sitting quietly at the end of the table. I've worked with Mrs. Morrison for 8 years, Tom said, since her husband James passed away. She's one of the most detail-oriented clients I have. She reviews every statement, asks questions about every transaction, understands her investments. When these unusual withdrawals started appearing, I should have caught them sooner. But the signatures looked legitimate. The power of attorney was on file. I had no reason to suspect fraud, not until Mrs. Morrison brought it to my attention. And when she did, she was clear, precise, not confused. She knew exactly what had been taken and when. If she was experiencing cognitive issues, I would have seen signs. I didn't, because there weren't any. Dr. Patterson wasn't present, but her written report was on the table. Susan read from it. Patient Linda Morrison underwent comprehensive cognitive evaluation on February 18th. Results indicate no impairment of memory, judgment, or cognitive function. Patient scored 98th percentile for age group on all standardized tests. Patient is fully competent to manage financial affairs, make legal decisions, and provide testimony. No evidence of dementia, confusion, or diminished capacity. David Chen looked at Brian again, whispered something. Brian nodded. Mr. Chen, Patricia said, does your client have a response? David Chen cleared his throat. My client acknowledges that mistakes were made. He was under significant financial stress. He makes no excuses for his actions. He is prepared to discuss restitution and terms for resolution. Susan placed a document on the table. Our settlement proposal, full restitution of $72,000, $54,000 in stolen funds, $18,000 in fraudulent debt that Mrs. Morrison is not responsible for. Payment plan, $3,000 per month for 24 months. Brian Morrison to be removed from all of Mrs. Morrison's accounts. Power of attorney immediately revoked. No future financial access of any kind. And a no-contact provision with the option for supervised visitation with grandchildren Emma and Tyler Morrison, if Mrs. Morrison chooses. Patricia reviewed the document. Mr. Chen, does your client agree to these terms? David Chen conferred with Brian, whispered conversation. Jessica was still crying. Brian's hands were still shaking. Finally, David spoke. My client cannot afford $3,000 per month. He's currently unemployed. He can offer $1,000 per month. Susan didn't hesitate. $1,000 per month means 72 months, 6 years. That's unacceptable. Mrs. Morrison is 68 years old. She needs her retirement funds now, not in 6 years. $3,000 per month, 24 months. If Mr. Morrison cannot afford it, he can sell assets. The boat he purchased with stolen funds, the furniture, the electronics, whatever it takes. Another whispered conference. Brian looked at me. Finally, for the first time since he'd walked in, his eyes were pleading. I didn't look away. $2,000 per month, David said. 36 months, 3 years. That's our counteroffer. Susan looked at me, raised an eyebrow, asking. I thought about it. $2,000 per month. $72,000 over 3 years. Longer than I wanted, but faster than 6 years. And it meant Brian would be paying me back until he was 45 years old. 3 years of accountability, of monthly reminders, of consequences. I nodded. We accept, Susan said. $2,000 per month. 36 months. First payment due June 1st. Automatic withdrawal from Mr. Morrison's account. All other terms remain. Removal from accounts. POA revoked. No future access. Supervised visitation with grandchildren if Mrs. Morrison chooses. Patricia drafted the settlement agreement, typed it on her laptop, printed copies for everyone. We reviewed it. Susan made a few edits. Patricia revised, printed again. Finally, at 11:45, 2 hours and 45 minutes after we'd started, the settlement was ready. "Mrs. Morrison," Patricia said, "do you agree to these terms?" I read through the document one more time. $2,000 per month, 36 months, $72,000 total. Brian removed from all accounts, POA revoked, boundaries clear. "I agree," I said. I signed. "Mr. Morrison," Patricia said, "do you agree to these terms?" Brian looked at the document, at the number, $72,000, at the payment schedule, $2,000 per month, for 3 years, at the no contact provision, at everything he'd lost. He picked up the pen, signed. Jessica signed as well, as a witness, as a co-responsible party. It was done. Patricia collected the signed documents, made copies for everyone. This settlement is legally binding. If either party violates the terms, the other party can pursue enforcement through the courts. I recommend both parties review the agreement with their attorneys and ensure compliance. This mediation is concluded. We stood. Brian and Jessica left first, quickly, without looking back. David Chen followed. Professional, neutral. Susan and I sat back down, alone in the conference room, the document still on the table, the settlement agreement in my hands. When the mediator read the settlement, I didn't feel triumphant, just tired, relieved, but mostly tired. I'd gotten my money back, but I'd lost something too. Susan touched my shoulder gently. "You did it. You held your ground. You got justice." I looked at the papers on the table, the settlement agreement, the family reunion photo Susan had included as evidence, the checkbook records, the power of attorney document, all of it. Evidence of what had been taken, and evidence of what I'd reclaimed. "Thank you," I said to Susan. "You're welcome. But you did this. You stood up for yourself. A lot of people in your situation don't. They let it go because it's family, because it's too hard, because they're afraid. You didn't. You fought, and you won." I nodded. I had won, but it didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving. We gathered the papers, put them in folders. Susan would file the settlement with the court, make it official, make it enforceable. First payment was due June 1st, 2 weeks from now. I walked out of the law office at noon. The sun was bright, warm, May sunshine. I got in my car, sat there for a minute, and I let myself cry. Not from sadness, not from anger, just from release, from the weight of 4 months of stress and fear and fighting, from holding it together for so long. I cried for 5 minutes. Then I stopped, wiped my eyes, started the car, and drove home. Margaret was waiting on my front porch. She'd brought lunch, sandwiches, potato salad, lemonade. She'd known I'd need someone when I got back. That's Margaret, always knowing. "How did it go?" she asked. "He signed," I said. $2,000 a month for 3 years, $72,000 total. It's over. Margaret hugged me. A real hug, long, solid. "Good, I'm proud of you." We ate lunch on the porch, in the sunshine, not talking about Brian or mediation or settlements, just eating, sitting, being there. And for the first time in 6 months, I felt like I could breathe. The first payment arrived on June 1st, $2,000, deposited directly into my account. I checked my balance that morning, saw the transfer, from Brian Morrison to Linda Morrison, restitution payment 1 of 36. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee in the blue mug, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not relief, exactly, not satisfaction, just closure beginning, the first step in a 3-year process, 35 more payments to go. Tom Bradford called that afternoon. Linda, I saw the payment come through on time. That's a good sign. It is, I said. I'd like to schedule a meeting. We need to discuss protecting your accounts going forward. Are you available this week? I was. Thursday morning, I sat in Tom's office, the same office where I'd shown him the evidence 6 months ago. I've set up additional monitoring on your accounts, Tom said. Any transaction over $500 will trigger an alert. You'll receive a text message immediately, and I've put a fraud flag on everything. Anyone trying to access your accounts will need multiple identity verifications. He handed me a folder. I've also drafted recommendations for your estate planning, a revocable living trust with your sister Diane as trustee. It would protect your assets. Make sure no one could manipulate a power of attorney again. I took the folder. Thank you. I appreciate everything you've done. Tom smiled. Small, professional, but genuine. You've shown remarkable resilience through this, Linda. Not everyone would have had the strength to pursue legal action against their own child. Saturday afternoon, Margaret came by. We sat on my front porch. Lemonade, sunshine, June weather. Garden Club was having its annual plant sale next weekend. I brought you something, she said. She handed me a small tray, 6 starter plants, marigolds, petunias, geraniums. Fresh starts, she said, for your flower beds. I looked at the plants, yellow, pink, red, bright colors, new growth. Thank you, I said. We sat quietly for a while. Then Margaret spoke. 10 years ago, my sister stole from me $20,000. I had made her a joint account owner after my husband died. When I found out, she made excuses, said she'd pay me back. I believed her. Margaret paused. She never did. And 2 years later, she did it again. To our mother, another $15,000. Mom didn't want to pursue it. Said it was too much stress. She died a year later. My sister inherited everything. She looked at me. I regret not fighting harder, not for the money, but for the principle. So when you decided to pursue legal action against Brian, I was proud of you. Because you did what I didn't do. You stood up, you set boundaries, and now he's paying you back. Every month, for 3 years. That's accountability. You did the right thing, Linda. Don't ever doubt that. The following week, I met with Susan Walker one final time to close out the case. The settlement is legally binding, Susan said. If Brian misses a payment, you can pursue enforcement, but so far he's been compliant. She handed me a business card, different from her law firm card. I run a volunteer advocacy program. We help seniors who've experienced financial abuse. We review documents, connect them with attorneys, provide education at senior centers. I'd like to invite you to speak at one of our workshops, if you're comfortable. Your story could help others recognize the warning signs. I took the card. I'll think about it. Susan smiled. No pressure, but you have a powerful story. And sometimes the most healing thing we can do is help others avoid our pain. 6 months after mediation, in November, I received a letter. Handwritten, Brian's handwriting. I almost threw it away, but I opened it. Mom, I know this letter can't fix what I did. I took advantage of you. I lied. I convinced myself it was okay because I was desperate. It wasn't okay. You worked your whole life for that money, and I stole it. I'm in therapy now, learning about boundaries and financial responsibility. I'm paying you back, and I'll keep paying until every cent is returned. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to know you weren't wrong. I was, and I'm sorry. Brian, I read it twice. It sounded genuine. Maybe it was. But I'd heard apologies before. Words were easy. What mattered now wasn't words. It was actions. The payments arriving every month. That was the real apology. I folded the letter, put it in a drawer, didn't respond, didn't need to. By December, I'd finished updating everything. My will, my medical directives, my beneficiaries. Diane was now my medical power of attorney, my trustee, the person who would make decisions if I couldn't. Brian was removed from everything. Emma and Tyler were listed as beneficiaries, but their inheritance would be held in trust until they turned 25, managed by Diane, protected. I'd also established a revocable living trust, following Tom's recommendations. All my assets transferred into it. My house, my retirement accounts, the cabin in Wisconsin, everything protected. No one could manipulate a power of attorney again. No one could access my accounts without going through Diane. It felt good, having everything organized, protected, secure. Financial restitution, $24,000 received so far. 12 payments, 12 months. Every payment on time. Deposited the first of each month. 24 more payments remaining. By December 2027, I'd have all $72,000 back. Brian would be 45 years old, still paying, still reminded every month of what he'd done. Boundaries. Communication only through attorneys. Brian had sent 2 emails since the letter. Both went to Susan. I didn't read them. We existed in separate worlds now. No holidays together, no family reunions, no dinners. The boundaries were clear, firm, permanent. Grandchildren supervised. Visits once a month. At a neutral location, the public library. Emma and Tyler would come with Diane. We'd spend an hour together, reading, talking, playing board games. It wasn't the same as before, but it was something. Emma, now 12, asked questions sometimes. "Why don't we see you at our house anymore, Grandma?" I told her the truth, in age-appropriate terms. "Your dad and I had a disagreement. We're working through it, but I still love you very much." Other consequences. Credit score restored to 760. Therapy sessions to process the betrayal. Tax issues with the IRS resolved. Home security system installed. Last month, my book club had a luncheon. Margaret, Carol, Ruth, and 3 other women. We met at a restaurant downtown, celebrated Carol's 70th birthday. After lunch, Margaret suggested we take a photo. We gathered together. 7 women, friends, allies, people who'd supported each other through divorces and deaths and financial betrayals and health scares and everything life threw at us. The waitress took the photo. We all smiled. Real smiles. Genuine. I had the photo printed, framed, put it on my mantle, where the family reunion photo used to be. A new family, a chosen family, people who showed up, who brought casseroles and starter plants and lemonade, who sat quietly when words weren't needed, who celebrated victories and mourned losses together. The old reunion photo, the one without me, was still in the garage, in the box labeled Brian, 1982-2024. I'd looked at it once since boxing it, just to see if it still hurt. It did, but less. More like a scar now, healed but visible. A reminder of what happened, of what I'd lost, but also what I'd gained. Strength, boundaries, self-respect. The first supervised visit with Emma and Tyler had been in July, 4 months after mediation. Diane brought them to the library, Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. I'd been nervous, hadn't seen them in 8 months. Tyler ran to me. "Grandma!" 8 years old, no filter, just happy to see me. He hugged me hard. Emma was more cautious, 11 now, old enough to sense something was wrong. She hugged me too, but carefully. "Hi, Grandma." We sat at a table. I'd brought books. Tyler's favorite, adventure stories. Emma liked mysteries. We read together. After 20 minutes, Tyler asked if I had cookies. I did. Homemade chocolate chip, his favorite. At the end of the hour, when Diane said it was time to go, Emma looked at me. "Can we come back next month?" "Yes," I said. "I'd like that." Evenings were peaceful now. No more bank statements spread on the kitchen table. No more evidence packets. No more legal documents, just regular life. I made dinner, usually simple soup, salad, sandwich, ate at the kitchen table. Then I'd read, mystery novels mostly, the kind where justice always wins in the end. At 9 o'clock, I'd make tea, chamomile. Sit on the porch if weather allowed, and I'd just be. Present, secure, protected, not looking. Over my shoulder, not waiting for the next crisis. Just existing in my own life, on my own terms. My retirement savings were rebuilding, slowly, $67,000 now. Tom projected I'd be back to $85,000 within 2 years if I stayed on budget, if the payments kept arriving. And they did. First of every month, $2,000 like clockwork. I was 70 now. 2 years had passed since that Thanksgiving, since the photo without me, since discovering the bank statement, since everything changed. I was 70, living alone, independent, financially stable, emotionally healing, with clear boundaries, a protected estate, a chosen family, and a story that could help others. Not the life I'd planned, not the family I'd wanted, but mine, fully mine. And nobody was going to take advantage of me again. It's been 2 years since that Thanksgiving. 2 years since I wasn't in the family photo. 2 years since I discovered the bank statement on my kitchen table. 2 years since everything changed. I'm 70 now, still living in the same house, the same ranch-style house James and I bought in 1984, 3 bedrooms, paid off, in a quiet suburb outside Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've lived here for 40 years, and I plan to stay. I'm living alone, by choice, independent, capable, managing my own affairs. My pension is $3,200 a month. Social Security is $1,600. My retirement savings are at $67,000 now, rebuilt from the $38,000 I had after Brian's theft. In another year, I'll be back to $85,000, maybe more. Tom says I'm on track. 24 payments received so far. $24,000. Brian hasn't missed one. Every first of the month, $2,000. Deposited into my account. 12 more payments to go. By next December, I'll have all $72,000 back. The debt erased, the consequences complete. My credit score is 760. My accounts are protected. Fraud alerts on everything. Diane is my trustee, my medical power of attorney, the person I trust. Not Brian, not anymore. That trust is gone. Permanently. Brian and I don't speak. No phone calls, no texts, no emails. Communication goes through attorneys if necessary, which it rarely is. The payments come automatically. The boundaries are clear. We exist in separate worlds now. That's how it needs to be. I see Emma and Tyler once a month, supervise visits at the library. They're 13 and 10 now, growing up without me in their daily lives. It hurts, but it's necessary. Diane brings them. We read together, talk, play games. For 1 hour each month. It's not enough, but it's something. And it's more than I'd have if I'd let the theft go, if I'd stayed silent, if I'd kept being the doormat. My life is quieter now, smaller in some ways, but fuller in others. Margaret comes by every week. We drink coffee, work in the garden, talk about garden club business, book club meets every month. 7 women, friends who showed up when I needed them, who sat with me, who brought casseroles and lemonade and starter plants. Chosen family. My estate is protected now. Everything in a revocable living trust. Diane as trustee. My will updated. Medical directives clear. Brian is removed from all documents. Emma and Tyler are beneficiaries, but their inheritance is held in trust until they're 25. Managed by Diane. Protected from their father's financial irresponsibility. The cabin in northern Wisconsin, the one Brian tried to steal by adding his name to the deed, is back in my name only. Secured. It'll go to Emma and Tyler when I die, not to Brian. He forfeited that when he stole from me. I've spoken at 3 senior center workshops now. Susan Walker's advocacy program, helping other seniors recognize the warning signs of financial abuse, teaching them about power of attorney documents, about red flags, about setting boundaries with adult children who ask for money repeatedly, about the difference between helping and enabling. At the last workshop, a woman in her 70s came up to me afterward, crying. She said her daughter had been taking money from her accounts for 2 years, $20,000. She thought she was alone, thought she was stupid for not seeing it sooner. I gave her Susan's card, told her she wasn't alone, told her it wasn't her fault, told her she could fight back. If my story helps one person avoid what I went through, or gives one person the courage to pursue justice like I did, then telling it is worth the pain of reliving it. Margaret still comes by every Friday morning. We've had coffee together at my kitchen table every Friday for 2 years now. Sometimes we talk about what happened, about Brian, about the mediation, about how hard it was. But mostly we talk about other things. The garden, her daughter in California, the mystery novels we're both reading, normal things, small things. Things that have nothing to do with theft and lawyers and betrayal. That's healing too. The normalcy, the routine, the friendships that stayed when family fell apart. Some days I still look at that old reunion photo, the one without me, and I remember they erased me from the picture, but they couldn't erase my voice. I found it again. My book club is reading a new mystery this month. We meet next Tuesday at the coffee shop downtown. Carol just got back from visiting her grandchildren in Florida. Ruth's daughter is getting married in June. Margaret is planning the garden club's summer plant sale. Life continues, with or without Brian. With or without the family, I thought I'd have at 70. I won't pretend this has been easy. Some days I still feel the loss, the son I thought I had, the relationship I thought we shared, the family gatherings that will never happen again, the grandchildren I see for 1 hour a month instead of every week. But I also feel something else, something I didn't have before, self-respect, boundaries, the knowledge that I stood up for myself, that I didn't let someone steal from me and get away with it, not even my own child, especially not my own child. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have taken legal action or tried to work it out privately? Let me know in the comments. If you or someone you know is experiencing financial elder abuse, reach out. Organizations like the National Center on Elder Abuse can provide resources. Elder law attorneys can help. You don't have to face this alone. I didn't. And neither do you. I'm 70 years old. I'm living alone in the house I've owned for 40 years. I'm financially stable, emotionally healing, with clear boundaries, a protected estate, a chosen family, and a voice that nobody, not even my own son, could take away from me. It's not the life I planned, not the family I wanted, but it's mine, fully mine. I'm standing. I have boundaries. I'm secure. And nobody's going to take advantage of me again.